Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Our Girlington podcast with myself, Baba Rahim, and co-host Maulana Saab, who's the Imam of Masjid Umar, head of the Paradise Academy, which is the Madrasa arm of Girlington Muslim Welfare Association, and volunteer at Our Girlington. Today we have a topic which is really close to home, and it's a topic which impacts our community in a large way. So, introducing our panel today. So, we have a repeat guest, so Naz from Consequences, who we had on a while ago. I think it was just after Ramadan when we had Naz. And we have Dave, who's the head of, and let me get this acronym right, CSLHG.org. So, he's the chair and facilitator of that organization. So I want to start with that acronym if we can. So Dave, oh sorry, just before we go into that, we want to kind of hand over to Molna Saab and ask Molna Saab the demographic of the community for those people who are not of the those people who are listening in from elsewhere, because we've had questions from quite a far field sometimes. So Molna Saab can just give us an overview of the demographic. So what is the local community, the people in the masjid, how many numbers we're talking about, stuff like that. I think that helps set the scene, and then we can move on from there. Molna Saab.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, and hi to everybody, and hi to Dave and Naz and Baba. Nice to see you back after your journeys last week.
I'll get you back for them comments on the last podcast, Molna Saab. Don't you worry.
We'll see. Anyway, and yeah, our Girlington's a community where it has a big Asian population, and in our mosque, where our current masjid is not very big, but we are building a bigger masjid because the need of the community. Currently, we have about 400 students here in our own madrasa that study. We have 20 teachers that teach. So the students age range from 5 up to 15, 16-year-olds. And in that education, we teach them Islamic education, the supplementary school, after the mainstream education they have during the day. With that, what we try to do is teach our children life skills, or also teach them sometimes what's out there in the real world. So sometimes we'll talk about crime, sometimes we'll talk about drugs, sometimes we'll talk about things that affect our youngsters. And the youngsters, they're very interesting because at that age they'll ask all kind of questions, and they want guidance from people. And alhamdulillah, from Islamic perspective, we give a guidance. But sometimes what happens is, and what we've been doing for the last few years, is bring in people that have been there, doing it, know the reality on the ground. So sometimes we worked with Naz previously, and I remember taking students to Girlington Community Centre, where Naz had a setup where they had a courtroom and a prison room. And I remember our boys and the girls, they went in there, and Naz went through the whole system of how when somebody's sent down, they go into prison. And it was an eye opener for our students, and to think, wow, because as an imam, I can sit there and say to students, look, prison's a bad place, this, that, the other. And they say, yeah, imam, so okay, that's fine. But you don't know the reality of it. But because Naz been there, he's got the Blue Peter badge, and not in a good way, but and because Naz can talk from experience. What happens is when you talk from experience, then people, wow, they want to listen up, and they get shocked, and they realize, wow, this is on my doorstep. And that's what we want to talk about, issues that affect our community. And today's issue, especially drugs. And I remember talking to Naz previously, where we've had sometimes parents come in crying because their 11-year-old kids have been approached by drug dealers to pass on drugs to other people. And we're like, whoa, and Imam said, what can I do? So, what advice do you give them? So, you hear those stories. then you know the reality on the ground. We see every day what's around us and everything. And we do talk about in the mosque, whatever, but sometimes these people who are stuck in these kind of situations don't come to the masjid. So how can we help them? How can we lend an arm towards them, or how can we tell them not to go down that slippery slope? So I think, and I think today's podcast will hopefully educate first of all myself and the parents that are listening, the children, that we need to make right choices, and we've got the right people there. And if you need guidance, there are people there that can help us. And I think that's the most important thing. I think today having Naz and Dave on this podcast, it's very, very important, and I really appreciate that they've come on. And pass on to you, Babar.
Excellent. Thank you, Mona Saab. I think that was a pretty in-depth view of where we are. So Dave, back over to you. I was going to ask you, your organization, so on the posters, it's been down as cslhg.org. Give us a little insight onto what that means so we can connect a little bit more.
Okay, so we're a peer-led abstinence-based support group. Now, the CSLHG, originally that stood for Cannabis, Spice and Legal High Group. So we started this group about 5.5 years ago, and we deal with people who have a desire to get off drugs. Now, we've got three sorts of people who we serve, really. So the first group, it's about current or ex-users of drugs. So it's people who are in active addiction at the moment, but they have a desire for abstinence to stop drugs entirely. And also, increasingly, we have a group of people who have recovered from drugs. Now, that's important for us because perhaps, by leading by example, these people can help the people who are currently on drugs to show that recovery is possible. So that's one group. And the second group that we service are, of course, the parents and loved ones and families of these people, because particularly with addiction, people can find themselves in addiction, but for the families, they've got to face the consequences of what their loved ones have done. And that's a group that we're increasingly supporting also. And finally, the last group, it's to do with the professional services, particularly that are in Bradford. So those addiction services, GPs, frontline workers who are dealing with these consequences of drugs. And within that work, we tend to work with groups such as Nazis, for instance. Now, finally, there's three ways that we address this. So the first one is we have mutual aid meetings. So we meet at the moment, because of COVID, we're doing our meetings via Zoom. We have 6 meetings a week, and it's where we just sit down and we discuss approaches to recovery. And so we just go around the room, we give examples of how things have worked for us, and it's up to people whether they take that advice, or they can take advice from certain people. Being a Bradford-led community group, we've got quite a diverse membership in terms of age, in terms of cultures, in terms of religion, and how people have found themselves in drugs and how they've got them out of that. So that's the first thing, to do with mutual aid meetings. The second one is to do with supplying advice and information usually to families and to parents, a little bit of science about the effects of these drugs and perhaps what to look for. So it's an information-based service. And finally, we support those professional services by a number of substance misuse training packages. Now, in particular, I'm working with Naz at the moment on some nitrous oxide training, because we've been asked by various groups within the community to develop something that will tackle this problem. So is that clear? We've got 3 types of users and 3 types of services
100%.
fundamentally that we have.
So how would someone, so let's say there's a concerned parent, and this was something that we went into quite a lot of depth with last time that Naz was talking to us about. So concerned parent wants to reach out and get some advice. How would they reach out and get that advice from an organization like yourself?
Right. So we operate via a website, cslhg.org, and within that there's a contact form that you can get in touch with us. So fundamentally, we'd be asking to put parents in touch with our family group that runs every Monday. So this is a group that meets regularly, where it's fundamentally just family members, loved ones, with a few people who've recovered from drugs, where we talk about specific advice and signs to look for. So I'd be encouraging the parents to join that group, really, to get that sort of information where they can ask direct questions the people who've recovered from groups.
And that's
Awesome.
what is the reality of drugs in our community? Is it a big issue? Is it a big problem?
It is as from working with the young people and stuff, and I'm sure Dave will be able to tell you more about that as well. But most of our young people are facing that kind of era where it's easier now to get hold of drugs than it was back in the days. Everyone's a drug dealer. It's accessible on Instagram, Snapchat, at a click of a finger. You know, you've got deals, people sending messages saying drop and deal, will deal directly to your door. So it's got easier and a lot more advanced in the sense that a lot of young people are getting access to it. As from a community side, I've only seen it getting worse, and that's not only because it's Girlington and Manningham community, it's communities throughout the whole of UK which have seen this rise in this. And through this COVID-19 period, you know, there's been a lot more that's come through to light at the end of the day. First it was to do with cannabis, then it was cocaine and stuff, and these are the drugs that were always there and always will be there. But the new stuff that's coming through now is the balloons and the silver cartridges you may see dotted around any areas. And like I said, what we've seen is a lot of people have realized that, hang on, with cannabis, if I'm taking cannabis, you know, my eyes are red, I'm stinking of it at the end of the day. If I'm taking cocaine, I'm off on another level, my pupils are diluted. Alcohol, same thing, different effects of it. But when it comes to this new drug that's coming, and that's here actually, not coming, but it's here, and it's rarely, everyone's kind of got access to it. I'm sure Dave will talk to you more about that, hence why we've worked on this program to advise parents of this. It's something that's now affecting a lot more people, whereas before it was specifically all bad boys or boys and stuff. Now it's even girls. You know, I've personally seen Asian girls, white girls, you know, girls actually using this drug because there's no comeback of it. So there's no kind of a telltale sign that, yeah, they're on these kind of new drugs or this thing. And this, for me, looking at it from a street perspective, I always look at it from the street perspective. It's gotten worse, and it's only going to get worse if we don't act and if we don't do anything about it.
Now you said something there, and it almost took me aback. But people are using stuff like Snapchat and stuff like that to get out. So how does something like that work? Because Snapchat, as far as I'm not a big Snapchat user, but Snapchat, as far as I'm aware of it, so you type messages, but the messages vanish, right?
Yes.
Is that why they're using a platform?
It's a new platform at the end of the day, and hopefully they call it, you know, in our presentation that Dave's just getting together to do for this new group. You'll see how easy it is, and they're putting it up there, and it stays up there so that a user can have a look at it once and look at it and think, right, I've got that, and then, you know, you can get back in touch, and once it's up there, it's gone. So it's something that they put on straight away. This is the offer. I'm around BD8 or BD3. Holla at me. Give me a call. And then within a couple of seconds, when the person's read it, it's gone. There's no evidence of it whatsoever. And that's like the new kind of mainstream. Back in the days, it was, here's my telephone number. Take this, you know, this is my business card. None of that no more. It's straight onto Snapchat, straight onto Instagram. And it's just adding as many people as you want.
So, Dave, you know, we're talking about drugs, and I think Naz has painted a bleak picture, and I don't think it's just in Bradford. I think it's everywhere, and it's not just one particular community. It's boys, girls, or different communities, different races, different backgrounds. What influences people to take drugs?
In terms of why they take drugs in the first place?
Yeah, like part of my ignorance, you know, but you know, if you know why are people attracted to drugs? What makes them go towards drugs? Like we've always considered it as a vice, and we always say, especially from the mosque, it's haram and stay away from it. You know, it's forbidden, and don't go near it, don't touch it. But even then, you know, people don't take the message, and people are influenced by drugs. And you know, let's be honest, there's a lot in the Muslim community as well. So what pulls people towards drugs?
Yeah. Well. First of all, you're right to say that all communities are affected by this issue to do with drugs. But fundamentally, here we're talking about young people, and young people are quite impressionable at the best of times. So they're just finding their way in life, and they're open to suggestion. And with today's popular culture and media, it's very difficult because this kind of culture is very prevalent in our society. You've got pop stars doing it, people within the community who seems to be very successful. They have flash cars, flash clothes. It's quite often as a result of drugs. So, leading on from the reality, drugs are here within all our communities, and young people are easily influenced. Now, also for young people, there's a lot of pressure to achieve these days. Luckily, us four here, we're all of an age where we remember about hard work, and we have to work. We were told to work hard to achieve things. These days, it's almost like it's set up to say, well, everything's instant. I used to teach in local colleges and universities. I used to teach computing, and the kids, they all wanted to be Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg. They weren't interested in the hard work that goes into that. They wanted the flash cars, the big houses. They wanted to be billionaires. So they're jumping between a desire to have something and that goal without putting hard work in between. And this is quite often a gap where drugs can come in. So in terms of those influences, we're talking about young people who are easily influenced, but ultimately us as people who are trying to help the community find its ways, we're perhaps not getting through to them somehow because there's some sort of void where they're taking drugs, they're filling in some sort of gap there. And we as a community, we've got to try and plug into that reason why they're doing that. And this is why we originally started working with Naz, because Naz is one of these people who can go between all communities and talk to young people at that level. So we need more people like Naz working with these young guys to say, look, this is what it looks like, but here's the reality of things.
I think from my perspective, some of these young people that I'm coming across, Sajid, basically, there's this thing of, so someone will say to him, it's that the cigarette, or have a cig, it's a nice buzz, it gives you a little bit of, I think it'll digest your food, or if you're stressed out. And then what happens is some people then look at it and think, well, if my parents and family members are in pain, they take pills, so I'm not going to take pills. What I'll do is I'll look up certain drugs. So cannabis they'll say, right, if you've got chronic pains, or if there's this happening with you, or if you're down, have a joint and it'll make you feel a bit better. And for that couple of seconds at the end of the day, and I'm talking from my childhood time days when I was growing up, I used to smoke it and think, yeah, I'm untouchable, and yeah, everything's going to be okay and everything's going to be right. And then what you see is that buzz then goes, and then the next day you want that same buzz again, and it doesn't occur. I'm sure Dave will be able to explain more about that. Dave?
Yeah. So as we do something again and again and again, we reinforce these ideas, and that can be anything, whether it's good or bad. So if we do good things again and again and again and again, we get used to doing that. For instance, if we go to the gym every day, might be hard at first, but after a month, we're used to going to the gym and we see some results with that. Unfortunately, it also works with bad things. So if we start off, we just have a joint on at a weekend, and then we do it on a Thursday night and the weekend. Before you know where we are, we're doing it every day. And then it's very difficult to break this addiction, because that's what it is. It's an addiction. And just to follow up on some of the things that Naz is saying there, quite often people can think, well, it's just a joint. It's not like I'm using heroin or something. It's only a joint. It's just like smoking a cigarette. And it's very similar to the problem that we're seeing at the moment to do with nitrous oxide. Like you said, we've got girls doing it, we've got young guys doing it, and they think, well, it's just a bit of a laugh, isn't it? But these things can lead to serious consequences.
And a lot of the young people that I've seen at the end of the day, I've always said, that Islamically there's context that show that if Imam Sajid, if you can back me up on this, and this is what I've always used for young people, especially the Muslim young people that I come across, is if you smoke a joint today, God forbid tomorrow one of your family members passes away, your prayer that you're going to read isn't valid. Your prayers that you're reading during the day isn't valid because of the thing that's in your system. For 30 days it's in your system and it stays in your system, and science has proven it, and religion has stated it as well, that it's in your system and it's not feasible. So when we're talking to these young people at the end of the day, I'm bringing them elements in there, but 9 times out of 10 they're always like, yeah, okay, this, that. So drink, no problem, it's in your system. Cannabis is in your system, cocaine's in your system. But you see this new nitrous and oxide, the balloons as I call it, they've got this kind of myth of, well, it's not doing anything, it's just giving me a couple of seconds high, and it's not in my system, and technically I'm all right. So this has become like the new kind of a buzz. And what I mean by them gases is happy gas, basically. It's the new cylinders that you're seeing everywhere on the streets and stuff and whatnot, and it's pumped into a balloon, and then that's like inhaled, and for that couple of seconds it's a high, but then it's something that we've seen is the new thing. And I think a lot of people that were scared to go on to the cannabis or anything like that are now trying this element because it's like, oh, well, there's no comebacks off of it.
And Naz, what percent, when we talk about all these gases that you're talking about, from what age do you think youngsters get into this? Is it from high school years or what?
Yeah, it starts in your high schools at the end of the day, and a lot of these young people because they've got access to Snapchat, and Snapchat's around that period of high school, upper school, as they say. It's easy for them to click send because there's no shop out here that's opened and it's got these equipments for sale, and if they have, it's for catering industry. But with this new thing which is on Snapchat, it's just constantly like, Dave will be able to explain more to you, but it's there, offers, boxes, and a lot of these young people are getting it dropped off outside school, around the corner. Some of them are claiming that they're having it in school at the end of the day. And some of my topics to young people has always been, well, what if you get caught? And they go, well, there's no Rizzlers involved, there's no cigarettes involved, it's just a balloon and a cracker, and we can just say, oh, this is just normal, it's all right. So parents are still not kind of catching on to that. Yes, they are seeing stuff in the streets where there's little silver cylinders, and they're not understanding where these cylinders are from and what are they used for. But the reality of it is it's there to be used for young people at this moment in time, and they're getting it any means of format, from schools to streets to parties to just going out for food, and it's getting dropped off. I've seen it where they're sat in cars, groups of four guys, 3 girls, in their own cars, just ballooning away, and it's like, what is going on? You've got other communities that will use that with alcohol, some will use it with cannabis, but you can see this is the new up and coming thing.
So what do we do to stop this influence? And because it does sometimes help when we see footballers that our kids look up to, they're again using these balloons or whatever it is. I'm still not aware of it 100% what it is. Like you said, I have seen those canisters sometimes around the mosque on the floor, but I don't know. But again, I've heard stories of footballers at parties where they're so I think kids get influenced, or my role models are doing it, so why shouldn't I?
See, for me, how it's worked is when I've ever had someone, and Dave can say something on this, is they've always said to me, and even you've said to me, Mamsab, as well, as time's gone over, Naz, who do I go to, or where can I go to when I have a parent coming to me saying, I've seen my child involved with this, or I've seen blue Rizzlers in his hands, or pocket, or anything, cannabis related or anything like that. And I've always said, I would go out there and I would find the best in the game. And today I'm lucky to have Dave with me on this. And what I do is I then signpost the young person's parents directly to Dave and his group. And then what happens is Dave then has that one-to-one mentoring support mechanism for the family, for the young person. bringing the young person onto a group where I've even been on the group to sit there and listen and to talk and give my advice. But when of this new type of stuff, this is what Dave will be able to tell you about, because we've realized that it's an up and coming thing and it's happening, and people in the communities, leaders like yourself, for the communities that we're in, have no real idea of what's going on and where and what is this for. So for me, it's always been to bring in the experts for it. And like I said, Dave and us and other people in this organization that Dave works with have come up with a PowerPoint, which I'm sure, Dave, if you want to just say a few words about that.
So first of all, to answer Sajid's query, and I'm sure a lot of parents are asking that sort of question, the answer lies in education and knowledge, really. So it's totally understandable that your average respectful parent, of course, they're not going to know about drugs. You know, why should they? How could they? So what we can do, as Naz has pointed out, we can educate some of these telltale signs, and we can talk about some of these consequences, and we can talk about how this works as a business and as a sort of subculture that young people are involved in. Now, we've developed this training package at the moment that does exactly that. So it's not only for parents, but it's also for frontline workers, for GPs. It's quite a broad training package, but it looks at all the aspects of it. Now, particularly for parents, some of these telltale signs, like Naz has said, what is this blue Rizzlers? Why has he got so many balloons? Why are these things appearing in my community, these little canisters? These are the sort of questions that we can answer and give some sort of background to why we're doing it and what we can do about it, basically. Because the danger is of thinking that this is just a problem that's going to go away. The chances are it'll turn into something else. So the first issue, it starts with education. So it's about putting some education out about what's going on. The second part of this is support and engagement. We've got to go to young people and engage with them. And it's not a question of saying, oh, what you're doing is wrong here. It's a question of saying, these are the consequences of doing these things. We understand why you're doing it, and we understand how you're doing it. But here are the consequences by following it along. When you're young, you don't always think about further down the line. So this is why we're engaging together, because it needs some sort of approach where we're all together. Specifically what Naz was talking about the implications for Islam, for instance, that's something that I'm not equipped or qualified to do. I'm relying on Naz, and I've heard him say that in our meetings to young guys, Islamic guys, that I couldn't get through to this. I couldn't talk about the consequences of their faith. Naz can do that, and with that comes credibility. And you also have a role in that, because you can speak with even more credibility on the consequences in terms of religion. So this is something that we have to tackle together from all the different angles.
So I just want to pick up on something that Naz, you said a couple of times when you were speaking today, about, you know, this new the balloons, as you call them, that though the cannabis and the more traditional drugs have this longer term thing, you see less of a time period, a shorter buzz for the balloon stuff. So I want to ask you something which is a little bit of left field. So what is the consequence if you take this balloon, it wears off in a couple of minutes, the buzz is gone, it can't be detected in my body? Is that so bad? So
I'll let Dave, because this is the part where Dave's work is
okay.
a lot on it.
So you're right. That's it. It's gone. It's out of my system in 2 minutes. However, if you've got 4 guys parked up in a car with the windows closed and they're all using nitrous oxide, what happens is the air supply inside that car gets depleted. And so their brains are starved of oxygen in the same way as carbon monoxide or something like that. So the first danger, the highest number of deaths from this use has been from asphyxiation, from suffocating. So that's the first issue there. The second problem, and I'm talking about serious harm and death, has been in quite often, and we know this from personal interviews that we've conducted with users. You know, with the help of Naz, who's given us access to these people, is they're doing it while they're driving. And while they're driving, yeah. And they're talking about it's a buzz when you're driving fast, loud music.
Yep.
And this is not just a question of they're inhaling from a canister while they're in control of a car. It's something that leads to intoxication. Now we're saying, oh, it only lasts a short while. It only takes a short while to lose your concentration. And there's a lot of car accidents that are attributable to the use of nitrous oxide as well. So for those two reasons in itself, the consequences are far reaching. And again, it's not just about those people. It's about their families. It's okay thinking, well, it's my car. If I crash it, what about the 4 people inside that car? What about their families? So the consequences have big effects. Sorry, Naz.
Sorry, Dave. Yeah, basically, some of the young people that we've interviewed at the end of the day, most of them don't really want to come on to a video and say. And some of these young people that we've had, and in the training pack that Dave will come out with, and I'm sure we'll be bringing it back to you all to have a look and go through for your own, because like I said, you're all leaders of the community in your own ways and your own departments. And like I said, the young people that I've spoken to have all said this. They said, right, I'd rather take this balloon and get high, and I've had a buzz. I've been driving, I've been parked up, I've been with my mates, I've been chilling on my own, whatever. I've been down and I've had it, and I feel high. And I go, right, so what do you mean high? And they go, just for a couple of seconds, I feel like, yeah, I could do anything and whatnot. And then I'm back off of it. And I said, so what was the effects that you think, that got you like addicted to it? And one thing that they said to me was, is you start off with 1 canister and a box comes with 25 canisters. Now, cannabis, at the end of the day, cocaine or alcohol, you name it, once the bottle's finished, before the bottle's finished, you're out. It's got to your body's all over. With cannabis, you can smoke so much until you fall asleep or you're bazooked out of your way. Cocaine, same thing. You'll have a high where you take so much, that's it. You don't feel nothing anymore. But with this here, the downfall of it is because it's a quick 1 minute high. They don't realize they keep taking it and taking it and taking it. And when I asked that young person, how many canisters have you gone through? He said, I went through a whole box myself. That's 25 canisters in one go. And I was like, whoa. So what's this? And show you. He says, got the canister out, put it in the cracker, put the balloon on top of it, popped it. It blew the balloon up, took it out, in, out, and left it in my mouth, and it's gone. Then I started another one. I said, so how long did that go on for? And this is what shocked me. He says, I'm telling you, Naz. I says, please, I want you to tell me. He says, I got addicted to it. I says, and what do you mean? He says, every day. It started where it was a box first a day, then it became to 2 at the end of the day. And now what's happening is they've got, I've got something, this is my aerosol, by the way, it's just an airspace, so don't think I've got one at home. It's something as big as this, whereas you've got something that's as small as a lighter canister. You've seen the silver ones. Now they're big bottles, so you don't need them. So now it's 80 canisters stacked into one, and they're using them. So that's now up in the market. And what this young person really got to me when he says, I've had bad experience from it. I says, what was the bad experience? He says, I was depressed constantly. My mind was thumping, pain in the left side of my brain. And I kept thinking, I must have hurt myself and whatnot. I couldn't sleep at the end of the day. And then I realized that it was this. Some people have had blackouts, literally from one balloon, taking 2 puffs in, and they've just, as they call it in the young people's world, KO'd in the car. So what did you do? Oh, well, we loosened his shirt, we opened the window, we took him out, we threw water on his face. Well, you don't know what's happening with the kid. And then, he never ever touched it again. And some of us have stopped because of that. Some people's can take more than some of the others. All it takes is one balloon to just really mess up what's up there. And from what Dave's done, and hopefully you'll be able to see that, the scientific part of it, of what's happening when you're inhaling that from your lungs to your brain, it gives you more of a clear idea of what the consequences can be. One puff can take you out. It could damage some of your brain cells. In a sense, it could even, am I right, Dave, in saying some of the damages on it?
Well, the main damages that we've got to focus on is those 2 things that I mentioned. Death by asphyxiation, that's taking the oxygen out of the environment that you're in, And then also the fact that this is done while people are driving, they're driving fast. They're the two main areas that we should really be concentrating on here. You know, but it's something that does need tackling, because at the moment it's started to become very prevalent. This has been around for years, but since lockdown, this has gone up. You'll notice more of these canisters around the streets than you've ever done before.
Ever.
We don't even know the full picture at the moment. The only indicator we've got is what we see on the streets, and for the interactions that people like ourselves and Naz are doing with young people who are telling us directly what's going on. But this could become even more of a problem than it is now.
So Dave, why are people? Why is the increase in intoxication during lockdown? Is it just people are that's at home depressed, or what's the reasons?
Yeah, I think first of all, certain other avenues like going out to certain places has been closed down when we had full lockdown. That people could still go out, and a lot of this is happening parked up in cars, I have to say. So there are certain places around Bradford where you'll see lots of these canisters, and that's where people are parked up in a car, doing them, throwing them out, doing them, throwing them out. So that's the current culture at the moment, the way things is because of lockdown. So I think that's what's attributable to that increase at the moment. The other thing is the other type of drugs. The distribution network has been disrupted somewhat because of lockdown. The fact that we couldn't move around so easily. So when we were in full lockdown, if you were driving around dealing drugs, you're quite conspicuous because you're one of the only people on the road and you're more likely to be stopped. So a lot of it has got to do with people have switched from availability of drugs to something like this. And for young people, it's almost like a craze. And with all young people and with all crazes, it can really take off in a bad way. So I think that's the reason why, specifically because of lockdown. There is some data to suggest that because of within the market, there's a lot more availability of these canisters, because before they were going to coffee shops and bars for making hot chocolate, and of course they've been closed. So someone sat on a warehouse full of these things and they're knocking it out to anyone at cheap prices. There's a suggestion that that's a reason for the current increase as well.
So one thing I want to ask you there. So sometimes these cylinders are referred to as legal highs.
Yeah.
So and that almost kind of validates that they're okay. Why are they called legal highs? Is it legal? Is it illegal? What's the play there?
So going backwards, the quick answer is it's illegal under the Psychoactive Substances Act to have anything that has a psychoactive effect. And this is what this does. So they're not banned because it's perfectly legitimate for coffee shops to use them to make hot chocolate. But it's being bought and sold and traded as an intoxicant. That is definitely illegal. Now, the phrase legal highs comes from a time before this piece of legislation where people were beating the current laws that dealt with things like cannabis, cocaine, heroin, things like this. People were manufacturing a synthetic version, a copy, a man-made version of these drugs that circumvented the laws. The authorities found out about them and they were tweaked a little bit. They found out about that one, they were tweaked again, tweaked again, tweaked again, tweaked again, to the point that you've got a very unstable, untested substance. So if you take something like cannabis and heroin, we've got a lot of data to look at, and we've got an aging population of people from 20, 30, 40 years who've been using these substances with these new drugs, these so-called legal highs, these mimics, these analogs, these copies, man-made versions. We've got very little data to see how they perform. And more importantly, what happens when they're mixed with other things, like alcohol, like pharmaceutical drugs that you might be prescribed from your doctor. There's no research to know what they're like in combination with this. This is where it becomes really dangerous. But Baba, does that answer your question about the term legal highs?
100%. Yes, thanks.
It's certainly not legal to use it recreationally.
See, the young people that I've spoke to, I've said, you know, with cannabis, when you're smoking a joint, you're scared because if you get caught, it's a mouth swab and it'll come up, and if they don't come up there, they'll take you down to the police station, and it's a blood sample. No matter if you don't want to give a blood sample, they will take it. And I'm talking from experience from people that I know of. With this one, what the theme is for me is that I'm seeing is I can have this balloon in my mouth as long as I've got my seatbelt on. They're not saying nothing to me. And I've spoken to police officers and I've said, look, if you see somebody who's parked up and he's got a balloon in his mouth, what can you do? And the officer says, nothing. I says, what do you mean nothing? He says, technically, we can't do nothing because by the time we get there, he'll take you out, it'll be gone. You can't smell it. It doesn't, there's no way of testing if this person's just had it. And it's not breaking the law to have a bag of balloons and canisters in your car and the actual thing that you put it in. And I was like, what? It's not breaking the law. He says, no, you're not. He says, because it's individual things. And I was quite shocked, and I thought, right, I get this now. That's why I see girls and boys, young age, older age, partying with this type of stuff. They're not scared because they know that the police and the government on the law doesn't say anything to them. It's a kind of at this moment in time, it's a free for all. Yep, no problem. We're just checking for this.
Yeah, legislation is always behind. Sorry, Sajid.
I was just going to say, are these canisters expensive, or are they easy to get hold of for youngsters and cheap?
They're easy to get hold of. Something
Very
like
easy.
What is it? £45 for
£45 for
the 85.
Yeah, and then you've got the big one, which is 80 canister, the size of that aerosol I just showed you. And because before what it was, you'd have to get 3 things in one go. So these dealers on Snapchat would be selling you the whole package. So it's a pack of balloons of 30 balloons at the end of the day, and they are either the silver ones or the yellow ones, or the blue ones, but mainly silver and yellow. Then at the same time, they'd offer you something like a rocket, which is like a lighter, but it's got something on it where it's got a nib. And then what you do is you put and they also would provide you with the canisters. So it's like a one-stop party shop. Then you get the canister, you put the canister into your rocket, you keep turning it until you hear the thing go psst. So that's pop the thing. You put your balloon on top, and then basically it's a package that they're selling. And now what they've done is someone's come up with the idea of forget the rocket, we don't need that because there's more chance of family members catching on to that. We'll just go with the canister and the balloons. And that way you can turn around and say, no, I'm just blowing up balloons for my birthday party or anything. And you're still kind of getting away with it. And a lot of people, believe it or not, are sat at home. If you watch some of these Snapchats, because I'm on Snapchat at the end of the day, and I watch some of these stories, shocking. They sat at home upstairs in the bedroom, popping away, playing music, playing FIFA whilst and it's like, wow, look how easy it is to get. Whereas, it's more available than cannabis, believe it or not.
Wow, it's scary.
So,
how easy it is to get. And I'm just saying it's you open up my eyes to how easy it is to get, and it's affordable. A group of guys will probably just chip in a tenner or somewhere, and they'll get. And it's probably the substitute to cigarettes, isn't it? Before you probably cigarettes, and people think if I get cigarettes, we'll just get this.
Yeah, and the downfall of it is the people that we're talking to, they're saying it as it's the true fact of A, there's no smell, B, there's no evidence, it's not in my system, it's not in my body, I can still go read my prayers, I can still go home with my eyes open, and there's nothing that they can't detect, and it's a quick 2-minute high at the end of the day. It's hard to believe, but it's so much in the community. Like what Dave and us have been doing is we've been sending out messages to the people that are part of the Dave's group, and what we've been saying is wherever you see these canisters, please just take a picture and note down the area. If it's next to a school, if it's in a park, if it's next to a shisha lounge, town. And some of the evidence that's coming back is unbelievable. Some of the young people that are sending me pictures, it might just be, say, 7-8 canisters, or it's shocking that you can see that a car's been parked in and they keep throwing the canisters out, and there's a little pile of them, and it's like, wow, what is going on here at the end of the day? And it just shocks you because you think, right, this is something that's creeped up in COVID, and it's gone higher than most of the things out there. And with the supply of it, bringing it back to what Sajid said, you won't believe it. It's just like cannabis and cocaine. When they do deals like buy 3 for the price of 2, buy a gram and we'll give you this much free. Same thing with the canisters. Buy 2 boxes and we'll give you 1 box free. And it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of introducing young people into this life. So supposing me and Naz were young and we're there at school and we're doing this, we're getting these odd canister that we're buying. It doesn't take long with Snapchat and on the internet for us to find out, well, we can get this in bulk.
Yep.
We can get it cheaper and we can sell it to people. So before you know where we are, we're getting involved in crime. You know, we're slowly dealing with something that could get us into serious problem. Yeah, you might not get into trouble if you're found with a balloon in your car, but if you're knocking this out to people, that is against the law. So unbeknownst to some of these kids, they can be drawn into crime. The other thing to point out is the consequences of this is if people are getting this buzz all the time, eventually with all drugs, you'll build up a tolerance and it's not going to work the same way. So you have to do more and more and more and more. And what happens with drugs is there are certain classes of drugs that get stronger and stronger, and you use a certain drug and you become tolerant to that drug. And then you search for the next high because this no longer gets you high. So you step up to something more serious. And there is always something, and there's always someone there to deal it to you, but it gets more serious and more dangerous. So a point like nitrous oxide, some people dismiss it to say, oh, it's not such a problem, it's just kids. Now's the time to interact with these kids to make sure that they don't take that further. But we need to have a concerted effort between multi-agencies and the community to do something about this.
I was just gonna ask. Oh, go on, Mama.
No, go, Baba.
I was just gonna ask that question. So I know you said that we don't know the long-term health consequences of this because it hasn't been around for that long. But what are some of the more economical or some of the lifestyle consequences that we've seen that we could possibly see that this could kind of project onto people? And I think he said it quite well there, where actually this could just be an introduction where we see people before this, they started on one drug and they escalated to other drugs. This is kind of just a step below. So this is even easier to introduce them into that same pathway that we've seen people, or you've seen people kind of start climbing the ladder, the unfortunate ladder of this addiction.
Yeah, and quite often you find if you've got like a group of guys who are all friends and one of them gets into a certain sort of music, he introduces that type of music to that group of people, and then they're all into that group of music. You know, someone gets a Golf GTI, they're all driving in Golf GTIs. Someone gets into drugs, they're all getting into drugs as well. So that's to do with the influence. But in terms of consequences, the two most strongest consequences are crime and health. Crime, as in you're going to end up going away for a long time, and health in terms of at the extreme, you're going to die, or you're going to affect your quality of life in terms of your health.
And Dave, you know, from your experience, can you tell us some negative stories or something that left a sour taste in your mouth, you know, whenever you've been dealing with issues, you know, from your experience?
Well, in terms of the negative experiences, so we've been running as a group for, 5-6 years now, and 5 of our members have died as a direct result of drugs. And that's basically sort of one a year. And we're a small group in Bradford who are dealing with this. So ultimately, people, they lose their lives in this. But that's nothing compared to things like in terms of missed potential sometimes. So for people who are getting into drugs, they're not achieving the same way as they might have done. They're not doing so well at school, university. They're not doing so well in their job, and their relationships are suffering. So, but ultimately, these communities are suffering as well, because it's a reputation within a community also. So people can have a view as a result of just 1 or 2 people doing negative things. I mean,
is there a lack of opportunities in our communities, and that possibly a reason why people going towards drugs, lack of jobs, lack of uh, you know, social activities, whatever it may be.
Okay, there's a direct correlation in all communities to do with poverty and drug use, in the same way as there is with life expectancy and all these things. So there's a definite link to do with that. Now, if you've got a good job, a good life, you're less likely to use drugs. That's been proven time and time again. So that's the first thing to say. And that is actually quite key. I do want to point out, though, in Bradford, we're very lucky as a community. We're very lucky that, for instance, the fact that you're doing something like this, it's quite brave just to look into the subject in itself. It's very forward-looking that we're even having this debate at the moment. But there are other things as well. So there are other services within Bradford, like the Bridge Project, for instance. It's a very forward-looking drugs agency that's been going for about 30 years, and it's a leader nationally in the way that they approach things like this. So believe me, I interact with a lot of colleagues nationally, and Bradford has a very good reputation for the approach that we take. But it's exactly down to doing things like this. You know, we've got to make the most of this and work together more so to try and tackle this problem.
Imam Sab, if I can just ask, because obviously Dave won't know about what religion states on this, but isn't it true that our religion states, Imam, that the community that you reside in at the end of the day, that's where you need to work with and support. And if there's an issue, don't look at it and think, oh, that's got nothing to do with me because it's someone else. As a community, what you're doing at Masjid Ummah, for me, for the last 10 years that I've been doing this work, I've always seen you've come forward with right, these are the issues, this is what we're feeling, this is what it is. Whereas back in the days when I was young, it was shh, quiet, it's not our problem, let the parents deal with it, or let the school deal with it. And for me, what I'm now seeing is such beautiful programs coming out of the madrasa, which is the masjid, for young people, especially when the young people are getting hands-on one-to-one and experiences from people like myself and other organizations that you've had to the table. Is it something that that our Islam states on this, Imam? If you wanna just say a few things, please.
Yeah, no, first of all, Alhamdulillah, as a Muslim, and not just a Muslim, as a Christian, Judaism, and every other religion, I think the greatest instruction from God is to have mercy on the people around you and to care for others around you. And so, as a Muslim, it's not, you don't just take care of yourself, you take care of your neighbor, you take care of people walking down the street, elderly, the respect for elders, having mercy on youngsters, looking after your neighborhood, keeping your neighborhood clean. And those are teachings of Islam, and those are the teaching of all the previous religions, that as well as your rights towards God, there are rights towards people around you. So as an Imam, I serve my community, and they have rights over me. And my job is their welfare, their well-being. And when you see, I always give examples. If you see a house on fire, what do? You call 999 and the fire brigade come out, and you're not just going to sit there and watch a house just go down. You're going to try to do something, and that's what we can all just do, play our part, and that's called humanity. And every religion teaches humanity, and Islam at the forefront. And our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was always there for others. He was always there taking care of people, and by taking care of other people, you win their hearts. They say that you're a person that cares for them. You're always thinking for their welfare and their good, and that's what it's a duty of every human, that we look after one another, we take care of one another. I always say that every child is our own children. Do you understand? And that's how we got to regard it. And whether he's Muslim, non-Muslim, if he's in our community, our duty, the welfare, the care of everybody. Remember, if something's going to happen in Girlington, it's not just going to happen to the Muslim community, it's going to affect everybody around, whether you're Muslim, non-Muslim, so it's regardless of your religion, your background, it's going to affect us all. If somebody's doing drugs, or somebody's doing something silly or stupid or crime, it's going to affect everybody in the community. And so these are things that we've got to worry about our community. As a Muslim, on the Day of Judgment, I'm going to be asked about, what did you do to serve your community? What did you do to help others around you? And when you saw everything go up, what did you do to put those fires out? And that's what we're trying to do. And I always give the example that we're just sticking little plasters onto, big cuts, and but we've got to do our part. And having people like Dave, Naz from different organizations, people that are there, see it, do it, meet the people, see the stories, listen to the stories. Dave just mentioned they've had 5 people that have passed away. 5 people, we might just say 5 is nothing, but 5 people, it's not just 5 people passing away, it's 5 families being destroyed, their loved ones being taken away. Not only that, it has an effect on the community around. So, we take these things lightly. And Naz, we've seen it many times in our community, whether it be kids in crime or whether it be, car accidents, the impact that it's had on our community, and we cry all the time. And we cry at that moment, we cry for those few days, but then we go back to our bad ways. And that's what we've got to all sit down and make a concerted effort, that how can we help? First of all, I'm a great believer of grassroots level work, that before people go into something wrong, let's work about on prevention. What can we do and help? How can we keep our children engaged in good actions, or whether it be the weekend play football, or some activity, socializing? How can they be engaged so that they're not tempted? All these are temptations and desires. Drug is a temptation and desire, and everybody wants to fulfill a temptation, desire. So how do we control those temptations? And we've got to keep people engaged in other things, so they're not going towards those temptations. Otherwise, it's very easy to fulfill a temptation. And I think that's what we're here, and that's what our motive is, that to help facilitate, have something for our community. That's why I keep on stressing that opportunities is a big thing for me. That if kids don't have an opportunity, when we were young, and I know Dave mentioned, alluded to our ages, that when we were young, we would do things. We would go out far and wide. We would go and break dens and make dens and go climb up trees and whatever. And that was our activity that kept us engaged. But nowadays, people just don't want to come out the house. People don't want to come out their cars. People are happy just to sit down for hours and
on the phone.
and so it's a sad situation.
Mashallah. So I think we're almost at the hour mark. So as much as we could talk about this topic for so long, I have so many more questions. I think, Naz, you're always up for another podcast, so inshallah we'll arrange another one, and with Dave too. I've put the URL for the organization on the screen there. So if anyone wants to copy that, go down. I'll also put it in the comments so people can see that. As a parting words, Dave, what would you say to the listeners that are listening now, and those who are going to listen in the coming weeks? What was your parting message to them be?
So my message would be that the way to tackle this problem, and it is a problem, is by the community engaging as a whole. So it's important that different organizations, different parts of the community come together with their specialist skills, their specialist connections to find a solution for this. Now, it's something that we're doing already, and I'm really pleased that I've been invited today. It's been so informative for me just to listen to you guys. And it's really uplifting, the fact that this sort of thing is going on, this open and honest discussion. This is the way forward at a community level, because if we wait for the laws to change and governments and things like this, we're going to be waiting a long time. So it's really uplifting what I've heard and seen tonight. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity that you've given me, guys. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Naz?
For me, I'd like to say, as I always say, keep up the good work that you're all doing. It's something that we all need to carry on. I know it's going to be hard with some of the lockdown measures and stuff, but from me, I would say this from my past and from when I've been working with young people. And people always say, where is that support mechanism? What is it? Well, today in this day and age, Masjid Ummah is showing everyone and the world that we as a mosque, we're here open for other issues. We're not here just to give you the basics of Islam and teaching, which is there, but also we're open to you. If you've got any issues, any family members are worried that a young person may be taking drugs or involved in something, come talk to us, because we have now got the avenues to take you through. I've brought young people forward, I brought family members and kept them in touch with Dave, and they've gotten there and they're carrying on that one-to-one support mechanism, and it's there. It's not something that they have to pay for. It's government funded, and for us, it's about getting out there and sending that message to all communities that, there is an issue, we're looking into it. There's avenues we can take it through. And like Dave says, and like everyone was saying, working together, it'll better not only our community, but our future. So keep up the good work. And if there's any other questions or any family members got any issues on that, please link on there or even get in touch. And if there's a demand, we may come back again and do a specific presentation on the gas balloons and the new drugs that we're coming across. So good luck and keep up the good work, everyone.
Maulana Saab.
Baba, I've just seen a question come up. I don't know if Dave wants to answer that before. I just.
Should we? Do you want to? Okay, so the question came up, and I will post it on the screen. I know we're just about to leave, but so what is the reason why a disproportionate amount of people in our community are involved in this activity?
I'm not so sure if it is disproportionate.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, with a particular high level of youth, you're most likely to see this sort of thing going on. So I think that is the main factor to do with the prevalence of youth, really. It does happen in other communities, I have to say. And it's the fact that we're having a debate like this, that it's more public, really. A lot of the things that Naz has been saying about it's hushed away, it hasn't been really brought to the surface, where it has in this. So perhaps it looks more that it's disproportionate, but I can guarantee it goes across cultures, across classes, and geographically as well. It's up and down the country, this.
See, they're having the same issues in a town which is just up the road from us, which is Harrogate, and it's known as one of the poshest communities and people that you won't even believe that there's no issues and what's not. But you see this cannabis, this cocaine and these canisters, just from a last event that they had before COVID-19, they were shocked the amount of canisters that were just everywhere. That one of the artists in Harrogate decided to get all the canister bottles and make some type of a statue with it. But even in them areas, it's starting to hit. Why? Because every young person is now on Instagram. Back in the days, it was who you know, what you know. Here now, it doesn't make a difference. As long as you've got an Instagram account or a Snapchat account, boop, 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 and within 2 minutes, you could be connected to someone in America trying to get cannabis, high-tech cannabis over, or you could be connected to someone in BD8, BD3, Leeds, you name the areas, and these are giving you kind of wholesale prices. So everything now is at your fingertips, whereas before it was, I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and I have to travel to down there. Now it's the other way. So those that are looking at it and thinking, oh, well, how come it's so easily accessible? I blame all this media. I blame Snapchat. I blame stuff like that for young people to come on. There's no policing of Snapchat. There's no the Incro phone they had, that was a different scenario, but this is for your local young person. They can have, I know young people at the ages of 12 who their parents have got them a new iPhone and gone, yeah, there you are, son, here's an iPhone from us, good luck, well done, you're now with it, now you can WhatsApp us and all that. What they don't understand is they don't look at the other applications that they've downloaded, and if Snapchat's downloaded in there, they've got all their friends. It starts with that. So every kid's there going, yeah, I want to get everybody on. You want to be your friend. I want to be your friend. Yeah. And then it starts from little videos of, look at the money that I've got, or look at the trainers I've bought, or look. And the worst thing that I've seen is or look what I'm eating today, everybody. Look at this. And then when they get a bit older, them connections then get involved with other things. Someone's having a joint. Oh, I've had a hard day. I didn't get my grades, or I'm stressed out. And then you've got someone thinking, oh, hang on. I know somebody that can get you that. And it's then you've got these kind of people who are now internet warriors, in a sense, of Snapchat warriors, that just sit there constantly on their phone. Yeah, this is what's going on. That's what's going on. And these drug dealers and these people that are supplying them with stuff like that, they're happy to put that on there with the big cars, with the money and stuff. And this is what offers we've got on. And then a lot of young people are like, oh, wow, I can get hold of that. And a young person that once couldn't be able to give anyone anything has now become that main link. And I think all down to this new Snapchat, really.
Excellent. I think we have one last question from the comments, and then we will wrap up. So, Conrad asks, can parents do more to stop these drug takers or turn a blind eye? So, can parents do more?
Okay, so from my perspective, again, this is down to education and knowledge. So we've got to know what our kids are doing. That's the first thing. And to do that, we've got to be armed with the right information. We've got to know the sort of kit that's being used, like Rizzlers, like these crackers. We've got to understand what's going on, because the danger is that the parents can be behind the curve with the kids, because the information, as Naz has pointed out, through these new types of media, it's out there. This is this, it costs this, everybody's doing it. You've said yourself about pop stars and footballers doing it. So the kids have this information, but perhaps the parents don't. So it's all down to that education to know what our kids are doing. So that might mean things like unexplained wealth. It might mean to do with certain bits of these paraphernalia. Why has he got lots of balloons? Why has he got these Rizzlers? So information is the key here. That's the best way I can summarize that.
And from my point of view, when we did when we used to do presentations, and every Ramadan, I've always come into the mosque, and Sajid Sab, I'm sure you can verify this, where we came in and it was parents, and we was upstairs at the mosque, and basically we did the presentation. And even to this day, you know, whenever I see some of those parents, you know, they always pull me, especially, and they go, hey, what you said about prison really hit home, because we never knew this was what would happen, and X, Y, and Z. And with this, it's the same scenario. If we can educate, for example, the leaders of the future, the imams of the mosques first, get them educated onto this stuff that's happening, and then have that kind of a talk with the family members to say, look, there will be, once things get back to normal, that is with COVID, you know, like we used to have a day in the new mosque, inshallah, when that's up and running, because the space in there is going to be beautiful, where me and Dave and organizations can come in and deliver to the whole parents. You know, you're talking anywhere, Dave, especially in Girlington with the mosque here, you're looking at over 2,000 people. That's just the adults that are around this mosque. And to educate them, if they get educated, and remember what happens then is that whole Chinese whispers. It's like we've got our own kind of Snapchat, but it's word on mouth that, yes, Dave came in or Naz came in and this is what they said. And they can then lead to another parent, And schools are not offering that because I have no idea why. But if our mosques are offering it, I'm sure a lot of the community would benefit from that, because they're getting it direct from people that have been there, done that, know about it, guided from it, and government funded from it, and local imams as well, who are teaching the children about the religious aspect at the same time what's happening in the community as of now, as in open your window, right, the canisters you see, this is what they are, and be careful of them. Cannabis is this, cocaine is this, and giving them that message. And for us, like I said, it's just about, like Dave says, and everyone knows that it's educating them at a point where they all look and go, right, now we understand, and now we can take that further.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Dave, and thank you, Naz. Molla Sab, final comments from yourselves.
No, mashallah, I think Dave and Naz, they've hit the nail on the head. And I think two things that we've heard again and again. One thing is education. I think responsibility. I think we can't turn a blind eye to things anymore. Before we were like comfortable in our houses and we thought, oh, this doesn't happen to me. This doesn't affect me. But reality is now it's affecting everybody in every household, in every street corner. It's everywhere. And if we're just gonna act dumb and play stupid and say it's not gonna happen in my house, then unfortunately we're gonna suffer. So what we need to do is be responsible, especially of our own children. Remember, you might not be able to save everybody, but if every family takes care of their own family, that's a big thing. That way, the community will take care of itself. If I take care of my family, my children, they're my responsibility. Education, I need to educate myself. Need to educate my children. Need to take their responsibility. Ask them where you're going, what you're doing, what you're up to. If they're coming home with lots of money, where you get this money from. So we need to take responsibility. And if we're just going to turn a blind eye, remember your God is watching. Allah is watching you. Tomorrow, what answer are you going to give to God? That did you turn a, Allah's gonna ask you, why did you turn a blind eye when you knew what reality was? So let's not be fooled by all these things. And like I mentioned before, these are temptations and desires. And the thing is, everybody wants to get rich quickly. They want this fame and everything. How long are you gonna have it for? Remember, this world is temporary. We're only here for a short while. Why destroy your world and your hereafter for this temporary desires, temptation, temporary highness? Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that only by the remembrance of God, the remembrance of Allah, that you will get complete contentment. I think everybody's striving for that contentment, that peace in their life. And reality, that peace, that drug is the dhikr of Allah, the remembrance of God. Once you have the remembrance of God in your life and you remember constantly God, then you're going to fear going down these slippery slopes. And you're going to remember that God's watching what I'm doing and I shouldn't be doing this. So once you become God conscious, then automatically you won't go down that slippery slope, or you'll be more careful in how you tread and how you walk. So I think we've got to all take responsibility. We can't turn a blind eye to things that we used to in the past. And let's be honest with things. These are issues in our community. Let's try to tackle them. And these are people in the world, they're suffering from hunger. Some people are suffering from wars. Some people are suffering from different issues. What's our issues? We've got food, we've got houses, we've got cars that we drive, we've got the luxuries, the wealth, everything here. Our issues might be just bringing our children. Those are the challenges. So let's try to worry about our children, take responsibility of them, look after them, take care of them, give them a good education, give them good tarbiyat, good upbringing. And that's the responsibility of every parent. I think if we do these things and we pray to God that God keep our children steadfast upon Islam, upon our deen, and inshallah everything hopefully will be fine. May Allah Ta'ala accept. First of all, I want to say thank you for Dave for joining us. I've learned a lot from Dave, and hopefully inshallah we will work together in the future as well. So it's nice meeting Dave. Even Naz, Jazakallah for coming on. May Allah reward you and keep all the efforts that you guys are doing. You guys are doing a tremendous job, and when you talk about these stories, you really hit home, and it brings tears to the eyes, but it's reality out there. And we just pray that hopefully is that there's a better future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'd also like to say thank you. There's often when Naz comes on and he also says things which like I remember last time when you were talking, Naz, and you were telling us what the canisters were for. Like I'd seen the canisters and I had no idea, and then you were like, oh, this is what they're for. I'm like, oh wow. And today a couple of things that you said are like I'm just like, wow, like people are driving and using this sort of stuff. It kind of boggles the mind sometimes. So thank you for bringing it in. It's about education, and without something like this, without a platform like this, and Molna Sahab does a lot of work behind the scenes to organize guests. But thank you so much for bringing this to our attention and educating us a little bit more. And we hope to do another podcast with you guys. Finally, guys, if you're liking the content that's coming out, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and the Facebook channel. there's no sponsorship here, so please like and subscribe. It just shows your appreciation. Next week's podcast is about another close to home topic. It's about obesity in children. We have a doctor, Dr. Sufyan, on trying to find what the problem is and ways as the community we can tackle the issue of obesity in children. Thank you for everyone who's asked questions. Thank you for the panel, and inshallah we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.